We've got a game time and broadcast channel for OU Texas. But before that, we've got Iowa State. Are people overlooking the Cyclones a little bit? We'll talk about that and so much more on tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners Live.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase of the best last-minute ticket deals around. Go to Gametime wherever you get your apps. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. The show is at Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Josh, the Iowa State Cyclones come to town for a primetime kick on Fox Sports 1. Are people overlooking the Cyclones a little bit, in your opinion?
Not necessarily, in my opinion, but probably it's healthy for everyone to have the expectation that this is an Iowa State team that has in fact made progress from the Ohio debacle that we're just several weeks removed from. I do look at it and say that is a terrible sign, another terrible sign for Oklahoma State moving forward. But Rocco Beck throws for 350, multiple scores. On some level, he's starting to, improve and figure things out a little bit, which was not altogether surprising, right? Somebody that's kind of making their first several starts, and all of a sudden we're seeing some improvement. But do I think Iowa State is something that Oklahoma should be particularly concerned about? No, I don't. I kind of look at this game through the lens of, if Oklahoma is what I think Oklahoma is, at least to this point, then I expect Rocco Beck and Iowa State to really struggle to move the football. And I expect Oklahoma to hopefully be able to put some points on the board and win this game fairly comfortably going into Red River. But inside those four walls, as they say at Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, John, I'm sure they have a much different feeling on Iowa State than maybe yours truly does.
Well, I think what happened this past Saturday is great fuel for the fire. If you need any kind of motivation for getting up for Iowa State, Rocco Beck throwing for over 350 and 3 touchdowns, Iowa State scoring 34 points, beating Oklahoma State, albeit maybe a bad Oklahoma State team, still beating an in-state rival. Man, I love that all of that just went down this past Saturday, because it's going to be fresh in everybody's mind. The coaches are going to be able to point to what happened just a couple days ago as they do their game prep and get ready for the Cyclones. And honestly, they'll be able to point to, okay, the Cyclones have given Oklahoma fits over the last couple of years, and they're not a team that you can, take lightly or sleep on at all, because you'll be in a bit of a dogfight. Even last year, when Iowa State's offense wasn't very good, the defense was still tough, and it gave Oklahoma a little bit of trouble, especially in that first half. Remember, they needed a Zach Schmidt fake field goal run to get their first touchdown of the game, and that was late in the first half. So Iowa State's not a team that you can really look past, even if their offense hasn't been very good. At least this past weekend, they were pretty good, but the defense has been better than what, Jet mentions in the YouTube chat, that OSU put up 27 points. I mean, but you're not seeing a lot of teams do that this year. And I think that's because they are a good defense. Sometimes they just get beat. And I do think Oklahoma is going to be well prepared for them, and they're not going to take anybody lightly. And a lot of this also comes down to what I feel like is coming from the coaches and the players. They're playing with a bit of an edge and a chip on their shoulder because of everything that went down last year. They're not overlooking anybody. It's all coach speak. You take it 1 week at a time, game by game. We're 1-0 this week. The record's new. We start 0-0 this next week. It's all coach speak, but I really do feel like this team is buying that, because they have no reason to be high and mighty, because they were 6-7, and especially on defense was one of the worst defenses in the country last year. So the guys like Danny Stutzman and Key Lawrence, Isaiah Coe, Jordan Kelly, Ethan Downs, Reggie Grimes, Marcus Stripling, Woody Washington, Billy Bowman, all these dudes that were critical parts of that defense and saw how bad things could be. They're not going to let anybody get too high on themselves because they know how quickly it can all fall apart.
I think that's right. And Oklahoma needs to be on its toes for Matt Campbell, the Cyclones. They will pull out every last stop. Any magical bag of tricks that Iowa State has, you better be prepared for that this week because, frankly, the difference between these two teams, John, I think is very, very pronounced. I'm not going to get, again, totally lost in the sauce here over what Iowa State did to Oklahoma State. I think that was two of the worst teams of the conference playing each other last week. So if that is indeed the case, then Oklahoma has a chance here to A, come out again, another very, very nice defensive performance. B, okay, I do have some respect for Iowa State defensively, even though, last week wasn't necessarily their finest performance of the season so far versus Oklahoma State, but a chance to come out against a pretty good defense and show, hey, we're committed to run the football and we're going to run the football effectively this week. And oh, by the way, all of this happens and who knows, you get to a fourth quarter where maybe you don't have to play the ones throughout the entirety of the fourth quarter. And that can be helpful going into the OU Texas game, right?
Yeah, it very much could be. And I do believe that Oklahoma is going to win this game and win it handily. And I think they'll probably end up covering because they're a more talented team and a team, like I said, playing with a bit of a chip on its shoulder and wanting to continue to improve upon what is a really good start so far. 4-0. The defense is only allowing 8.5 points per game. The offense, for the most part, looks pretty good. There are times where, they've had their moments where they're not looking great, and have room for them to improve as well. But all in all, I mean, you got to like the trajectory that they're heading on. They got to continue to improve though. But I think this week gives them an opportunity to still kind of work out some of the kinks in their running game, work out some of the wide receiver rotation stuff, because several players are earning more opportunities. And can they, honestly, I would like to see them maybe look at some formations without a tight end, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, as well as the running game. And if it's showing signs of life about what they did against Cincinnati, we got so much to discuss. We'll take your questions, your comments here on the Locked On Sooners live show. But we're going to talk about the running game. And I really feel like they showed a little bit of promise, some signs of life against Cincinnati. We'll talk about that after the break. And if you're looking for last minute deals on tickets to OU versus Iowa State in Norman for a primetime affair, go to Gametime, download the app, use code LOCKEDONCollege. You can get $20 off of your first purchase over at Gametime. Love this app. It's a great resource for concerts, plays, the theater, going to games, whatever you're looking for. Gametime has got you covered, and they'll give you a view of what you're looking at if you decide to purchase a particular seat. You're not guessing what the vision is going to be like, what the line of sight is going to be like. You're not going to be sitting there like that USC guy who went to a game and only could see the 10-yard line and the goal line. No, Gametime has you better prepared for what you're going to be seeing on game day. So go download the Gametime app wherever you get your apps, the Apple Store, Google Play Store, wherever that is. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. You can get $20 off your first purchase over at Gametime. Again, Gametime gives you all the best deals. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege. $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, low price, guaranteed. And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Free and available on all platforms and on YouTube. Hit that notification bell and hit that subscribe button. And hey, drop a like if you're here in the YouTube channel watching live with us. We appreciate all the conversation that's happening over in the YouTube chat. It's always a fun time to see what y'all are talking about because that helps us decide what we're going to talk about as we're watching what's going on. But Josh, as I thought more about what Oklahoma did against Cincinnati, especially in the second half, I really started to feel a little bit better about the running game. Now, the running game has been very, very inconsistent this year. In the first half against Cincinnati, it was downright bad. They averaged something like 1.8 yards per carry against the Bearcats in the first half. Well, you come back in the second half, and they averaged 4.7 yards per carry, 16 carries, 70 yards, a much, much better performance against what is a really good defensive line with Dante Corleone at the front, the forefront of that attack, who could potentially be one of the best defensive tackles in college football. I thought the adjustments that they made in the second half were very beneficial, and they worked really, really well. And I think the totals could have been even better had not a penalty, called a big Marcus Major run back. So am I crazy for kind of taking what happened in the second half and being a little bit encouraged by that? Am I feeling too optimistic on that front, Josh?
I'm not going to tell you you're crazy, but I'm going to say for me, I'm leaning more in the camp of show me that you've improved legitimately versus Iowa State. Nothing would make me happier this week outside of just continued play by this defense where you hold Iowa State to, 17 points or less, whatever number you want to throw out there. Something below that figure would be positive, right? But beyond that, offensively, the debates that have ratcheted up about Dylan Gabriel, that debate aside, nothing would make me happier than if Oklahoma finds a way to just go grind out 250 yards on the ground this week, because time and time again, year after year after year, the OU Texas game, it's old school football, baby. As much as the game changes, that game remains the same in the sense that typically whoever runs the football better wins the OU Texas game. So it's time this week for Oklahoma to really kick things into high gear. There were some positive signs, yeah, at times, whether it was, the 3rd and 19 run for Major in the first half or just the entirety of the second half versus Cincinnati. There were positives in it. The quarterback run game, save for a fumble, at times had some positive elements to it. I'd like to see Oklahoma be a little bit more successful minus the quarterback run game, because I think that's a better indicator of how the run is working for Oklahoma. But, man, that's the big key this week, I think, for OU, outside of just however you can get into the win column, and, as many different things as you'd like to see. Probably the number one thing this week is, okay, just go run the football effectively.
They've got to figure it out. And I'm still kind of believing that they will, as the season goes along, that they'll get better and better. I think the offensive line has to continue to improve. They're still kind of figuring some things out. You're down your starting left guard. You're now to Troy Everett and, a little bit of Caden Green. Who knows if Savion Bird will be back this week. But, Walter Rouse, Andrew Rame, McKade Mathier, Tyler Guyton, they've got to be better. These guys are veterans on your roster and on your offensive line. They've got to kind of lead the way for the Sooners team, and running the football is a big component of what makes Oklahoma successful. And I do think it's going to get better. I really do. I think once they kind of figure out their running back rotation a little bit more, because as much as they want to go with the hot hand, that's fine. At the same time, you've got to play to get a feel for the game. You got to play to get a feel for what the blocking is doing in front of you. So much of it is about consistency and a little bit having some chemistry and being able to see what's happening in front of you. If you're not getting to play behind this offensive line, you're not going to get a great feel for what they're doing and not doing and how you need to work as a running back. And so if it's, Sawchuk and Barnes one week and then Walker and Major the next week, I think it's hard for guys to build on and learn from how things are going in one game to be able to build on that in the next game. So we'll see. It's, if anything, that's been kind of the biggest complaint is, what are we even doing with running back? Now, I know Major's been productive at times and Tawi Walker's been productive at times, but it just doesn't seem like they have a set in stone plan. It's just kind of like whoever looks good in practice each week is going to get the bulk of the carries. And I mean, that's one way to go about it, but practice is different than games. And we know what Javonte Barnes is capable of. And so I'd really like to see him get the ball a little bit more, but ultimately it comes down to, if the offensive line is blocking better in the run game, then the running backs will look better as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely, for me, put more on the just offensive line run blocking than I do probably the running backs themselves, who's been handling the carries, though that's not been picture perfect either. I think back to a Marcus Major stumble in this last game that looked like maybe it was blocked up to where if he stays on his feet, it's definitely a first down on, I think it was a third down snap. Maybe it was a second down snap, but bottom line, he was picking up a first down there. And I think he might've gone into the end zone this past week. So you got that. Javonte Barnes and Sawchuk. It's been well documented, not just by us, but by just about everybody, that, hey, the injury bug has been a problem with those two. And so Oklahoma's been trying to navigate that and get those guys up to speed. And a couple of games ago, when they really wanted to force feed Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, John, I thought that they did, yes, look a step slow. It didn't look like the two backs we saw versus Florida State in the Cheez-It Bowl. So all of that is to say that, yes, some of it is, I think, on the running backs themselves. But again, to me, I just need to see this offensive line this week, whether it's Everett at left guard or if, Green does get an extended look there, whatever combination it looks like. This is the final week to figure things out before Texas and really get some nasty established back in that run game.
That's what we need. I mean, they need a physical presence, and that's going to help open up everything else. There was a comment a little bit earlier in the show that talked about, if throwing the football is our strength, then throw the football and use it to open up the run. Need to find that because it was a good comment. I tend to agree. Right now, the thing that's most consistent about your offense is the passing game. And with the depth of playmakers that you have on the outside, you might be able to afford to go into it with a little bit of a Texas Tech air raid style approach, where I suggested it on the Locked On Sooners Twitter account, where you go 4 wide receivers and no tight ends, and you just sling the ball around, or you go 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and you just sling it. Because, say what you want about Dillon Gabriel, I think he's playing good football, and you've got a good group of players at wide receiver and at running back that can catch the ball. A wide receiver in particular, man, between Angelo Anthony and Jalil Farouk and Nick Anderson and Drake Stoops and Gavin Freeman, Jaquaze Petaway and Jaden Gibson, you've got a really, really nice set of receivers that if you want to decide to throw it 60 times, I think you could find a way to win that way without having to run the ball 40 times.
Yeah, and probably all of that is getting explored or is about to get explored. Maybe that's been happening in practice a little bit, and Oklahoma has an idea of kind of what that would look like, and you just haven't shown all of it on tape because, well, you've been able to navigate this schedule that's been handed to you. I think back to the SMU game, as many complaints as we could have offensively for Oklahoma, when push came to shove, they went and made plays, right, to go separate late in that football game. And that's kind of been the MO in these 2 close ones for Oklahoma, that when push came to shove, they went and found enough drives that were positive for OU, but it's not been, in the SMU and Cincinnati games consistent enough throughout. There's reason against the best 2 teams that Oklahoma's played, John, whether we're talking about the run game or Dillon Gabriel or just the offense in general, there's reasons to be at least a little bit concerned about some of what we've seen. It's not totally humming yet for Oklahoma. I tend to be of the belief that with the run game, for me, until shown otherwise, Tawi Walker is the guy that should be getting the bulk of the carries, because based on my eyes, what I've seen this, so far this season, only going off what we've seen through 4 games here in 2023, he's the guy, to me, John, that has been the most productive. So I'm hoping that this is the week where Oklahoma says, you know what, the tinkering, we wanted to give Barnes and Sawchuk a legitimate chance of this thing. You look at just the game-by-game breakdown. Barnes was the leading carry guy in game 1 with 13. Walker had 8. SMU, it was Walker with 21. Major had 8. Tulsa, it was Barnes with 13. Sawchuk had 9. This past game, obviously, it was Major 15 and Tawi Walker 5. So there's really been no rhyme or reason to who's getting the bulk of the carries so far this season. And I don't totally live in the universe that you have to have a number 1 running back. I don't philosophically believe in that, John. But right now, I just based, again, on the 4 games we've seen, think Tawi Walker has proven himself to be the best option. So I hope that he gets the most carries this week.
he runs in a certain way that kind of gets everybody fired up. And I think when you're trying to figure out your run game, just give it to the battering ram. Just give it to the dude that's going to get downhill, that's going to pick up the tough yards and kind of lift everybody up with the way that he runs the football. That kind of stuff. We talk about the physicality on defense, the way that like Danny Stutzman, Key Lawrence, Reggie Pearson, the edge that they bring, the physicality that they bring to the table, how that can help kind of influence and infect the rest of the defense. The same is true for a guy like Tawee Walker, who's getting out, just doing the dirty work. That can also inspire and infect in a good way the rest of the offense. If you need physical, tough runs, which I think you're going to need some of that against Iowa State, then, Tawee Walker's proven to be the guy that's going to be able to make something happen when there's not much there. We got so much more to talk about here on the Locked On Sooners live show. We're so glad that you're with us in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to the show so that you can participate in the chat as well. Subscribe for free. That's all you got to do is just hit that subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're going to talk about Jaren Kanak. We're going to talk about the tight end situation and so much more after the break.
Do you love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door? Well, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. That's with DoorDash. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites. And again, now you can get your grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20. No minimum subtotal and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONCollege.
So what do we want to touch on first? The fact that Jaren Kanak was back at practice, according to Brent Venables. I think that's the most important news. I feel like he's playing really good football right now. You go over to like Pro Football Focus, which is a great reference for stats and analysis. And the dude is just putting up pressures like crazy. At times, he looks like Oklahoma's best pass rusher with the way that he's able to get off the line of scrimmage and get into the backfield and put pressure on the quarterback. I really am liking what I'm seeing from Jaren Kanak. The fact that he was back at practice, and according to Brent Venables, who spoke at the Rudy's Coaches Show, he's looking good to go. So I'm encouraged by that. You want to have as many of your pieces available every single week. You don't want to be down anybody. The fact that you're already down Justin Harrington, it kind of thins your linebacker room out a little bit. So the fact that you've got your starters in Stutzman and Kanak at Mike and Will, I think that's going to bode well for them as they go into Iowa State and then even down the road. I think he's playing really, really good football right now, Josh.
No doubt. I've got thoughts on Kanak for you, but first let me just say, yes, Will, you may. Will writes to us, my first live chat. Can I get a shout out? Boomer Sooner, hashtag OUDNA. What's up, Will? Welcome to the program. Keaton, you are right on the money. Keaton writes, like the stream, you apes, to which our man Gunny says, who's an ape? In the time of chimpanzees, I was a lemur, which Gunny, I'm here to inform you, is an incorrect lyric. In the time of chimpanzees, I was a monkey would be the correct lyric there. But appreciate all of you guys.
What song is that from?
That's from Loser, baby. That's Beck.
Oh, okay.
That's some Beck for you right there. But at any rate, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Sooners Live. Happy to have everybody here with us. If you're not here and you're listening along post-broadcast, well, just chime in with us at John9Williams. That's John on Twitter, at Josh on Ref, myself on Twitter, or Twitter X, formerly known as Twitter, right? However you want to refer to social media. Jaren Kanak, they got to have him back, man. He obviously has he's progressed into one of the key pieces of this defense. I do like the depth that Oklahoma has across the board, particularly at linebacker, where we've seen Kip Lewis do some nice things. We could go probably deeper along into the depth chart and still feel okay about what Oklahoma has. But even this past week, before the scary moment for him just crumbling to the field, Kanak has 7 tackles. I mean, to me, John, there's been sizzle with Jaren Kanak. We've seen him fly to the football at times, and we've seen him flash that next gear athleticism. This past Saturday, for me, was one of the first times to where it felt like, okay, everything's really starting to click for Jaren Kanak. It was like, okay, we see the athleticism, and it just felt like he was where he was supposed to be kind of at all times in the football game for the most part. So, yeah, I mean, obviously for Oklahoma to find out that he's back at practice, for Danny Stutzman to say, hey, he's good, that is very, very important for Oklahoma.
Second on the team in pressures right now, according to Pro Football Focus, behind just Ethan Downs, just showing off that athleticism and that speed and just the ability to get to the sideline, make plays, get into the backfield, and make plays. I think he's an ascending player. He's only going to continue to get better and better as he gets more and more experience. And I think that's the fun part about this. Josh, let's go through a few questions here before we get to the tight end talk, because that's not going to be near as much fun. Seth Ammerman asks, our intermediate pass game was humming and we kept going away from it, 4 bubbles and end arounds. My question to you, Josh, is this: is that going to change anytime soon?
No, that will not be changing anytime soon. It's just a staple of this Jeff Lebby offense. And I will not profess to be the completely educated party in why every single action happens, right? Why every single play happens. I could do with a little bit less of the, wide receiver coming across the formation and either you hand it off to him on the end around jet sweep or you quickly flick it out to them in the flat, which I feel like is at times a little telegraphed. And even the one throw for Dylan Gabriel that I think hit Stogner in the back was like it is sort of separate from maybe these plays we're talking about here, but similar in the sense that I just hate that some of Oklahoma's offense is sort of predetermined. It feels like at times, I mean, that play was almost picked off and run back the other way. And you worry at some point that some of these plays are going to turn out that way. I could do less for the bubbles and the end arounds, but obviously, again, like I said, I don't profess to know everything about Oklahoma's offense. And I'm sure that Jeff Lebby or anybody in that, on that offensive staff or for Oklahoma would tell you, well, we do X because of Y and Z. But to me, yeah, no, I could do without a little bit more of it.
If you've been following this show for much time, and especially last year, my disdain for the at or behind the line of scrimmage throws. It's just happening. It's going to come. And when your run game's not as effective as you need it to be, this is a good way to kind of take pressure off of the running game to be able to pick up, short yardage. But I'm with you. I think so much of like the orbital motion that they're doing where they're bringing the guy across and then they're looping him way back around behind the quarterback and then out to the flat and he's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Those aren't really the throws that I like. If you're going to throw the screen, at least throw it at the line of scrimmage where you're going to have blockers in place, not 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, because you still have to gain 5 yards before you make it a positive play. I like some of the things that they do with Drake Stoops where it's, just a quick little, almost like a quick little out that they throw to him. And then he's able to pick up 4, 5, 8 yards a pop at different times. So some of it I don't mind. I would prefer that they're attacking the sticks on every pass attempt, because the stats and the data shows you that if you attack the sticks, if you throw down the field, you're going to have a much more efficient offense. If you avoid third down altogether, you're going to have a much more efficient offense. So I'd prefer that they don't even try to play for third down, just avoid it altogether. Just attack the sticks when you're going to throw the football. Dylan Gabriel's been really good in the intermediate part of the field. So I'd like to see them continue to attack that part of it as well. Another great question. This one's going to come from Keaton Galactodon. Is that a space dinosaur maybe? Or is
Keaton
it Galactus?
Galaxy.
Is it a Galactus reference? Yeah, Keaton Galaxy. Can we talk about the refs kind of showing they hate us? Josh, I know that there were several calls that were either soft, like, Gentry Williams pass interference call, or the non-call where Farouk and isn't able to make a chance on a play or make a play on what's up. I don't know what's up with the refereeing right now.
Yeah, it's not great. And I saw somebody, I don't know who put this out there on social media earlier today, so I apologize. I'm not giving proper credit to whoever posted the tweet out there, but basically they ran through and put the stats out there of SMU's penalties that they had drawn in the 3 games that weren't named Oklahoma, and they went out there and put the penalties that Cincinnati had drawn in the games that were not named Oklahoma. And well, let's just suffice it to say that rough draft here, right? But let's say it was 7 penalties on average for each in games not named Oklahoma, and 2 against OU. So if you subscribe to the theory that the Big 12 is out to get Oklahoma, it's not been good in a couple of those games. And probably the reality to it is maybe there is a little bit something to all of that for Oklahoma, where they're just going to flat out have to be above some of that. The review that they had in the game, I don't know how that they looked at the review and didn't overturn the catch at the beginning of the game. I don't know how you looked at that. It looked so clear and obvious that it was not a catch for Cincinnati. So look, it just, again, the idea that we're in this massive conspiracy theory, I have a tough time totally subscribing to, because again, this is referees' livelihoods, and theoretically they're going to get held accountable for good and bad officiating, John, and that could theoretically hurt their chance to earn in the future. Again, all on paper theoretically, but yeah, it wasn't, there were some not so great, shall we say, this past weekend.
I don't generally like to ascribe to conspiracies, but I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't some influence that could be potentially happening. Oklahoma and Texas are leaving the Big 12. These officials are paid by the Big 12. These officials' livelihoods are affected by Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12. The revenue stream that the Big 12 can generate without Oklahoma and Texas is less than what it could with them. So to say that there is a conspiracy, I don't know. To say that they're being affected, maybe, but it would not surprise me one bit if 20 years down the road, some official says, yeah, we were directed to call things a little bit tighter against Oklahoma and Texas than we might otherwise. But you're right, man. The not overturning that one call where, I mean, his foot was clearly on the line is shocking. Why even have replay if you're not going to overturn that call? That's what replay is for. And then they mentioned the Dylan Gabriel targeting. Sean B mentions it here on the chat. That was absolutely targeting. He was a downed opponent. Sure, they gave him the 15-yard personal foul, but it was at the head. Like, that is textbook. You go to the replay to review if it's targeting or not. And I don't love the targeting rules, but if you're going to have them, enforce them. And if you're going to have replay to be able to review them, then you got to go to replay to review it. It's absolutely ludicrous and asinine that they did not even go to check if it was targeting, because they didn't want to know. They didn't want to see if it was targeting or not. But yeah, I don't like talking officiating, because I really do believe that everything that happens in a game is more dependent on the players and the coaches. And when officials get involved, it really irks me. I'd rather them call very little than call too much. But there are some plays that are just so obvious, like the Jalil Farouk play in the end zone. That was clearly pass interference and no flag. You know, you have at least 2 or 3 officials watching that play from right there, and to not pull a flag on that was absolutely crazy to me. The dude gets knocked over and doesn't have a chance to make a play on a ball that was almost intercepted. And that could have been a huge play in the game.
And Andrell Anthony makes maybe the greatest catch of the whole ball game. And yes, he was so obviously interfered with. That one is a little bit of a basketball play to where it's like, oh, we'll call a foul if he doesn't make the basket, right? It's like I'll give him a little bit of grace on that, to where it's like, It should have been an and one all along, but maybe they're waiting, right? It's like, well, if he doesn't make it, we'll throw the flag. So I don't know, man. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Oklahoma's going to get a bunch of benefit of the doubt. Hey, cycling back to the top with Iowa State, just this little piece of the puzzle. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk about with this Cyclones game this week, how much are we learning this week from Oklahoma's just professional approach to this week in, week out? You said that you don't think this is a team with Brent Venables in year 2 and this group specifically that is going to be overlooking teams. Ryan here comments to us, we get everyone's best. It's always game 7 mentality when teams play us. I'm with you on that. So on that note, John, is Oklahoma, are they going to show us that, hey, we're not taking anybody lightly and they're going to come out here and just flat out go beat a bad team down?
I do think so. I think they're going to, especially on the defensive side of the ball, continue to prove a point. They're out to prove that what happened last year is not indicative of what Oklahoma Sooners football is all about. And I think offensively, Dillon Gabriel, usually when he has a couple of games or a game where he misses throws that would be layup touchdowns, I think he usually comes back a little bit more locked in. Again, this is going to be a home environment, and that's going to, play in Oklahoma's favor so much more offensively and defensively that I think that they're just going to run Iowa State out of the gym. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be times where Iowa State makes some plays either on offense or defense, but I think ultimately it comes down to Oklahoma covers. They win by 20 or more in this one, and we're all left feeling pretty good about the direction as they head into the Texas game.
How about this? Iowa State's obviously unique. Drop 8 and insert your Lincoln Riley joke here if you would like to. But Brent writes to us, will Lebby learn and scheme guys open down the field, or will he still call plays to not show his hand to Texas? Iowa State's going to drop in coverage as usual and force patience. So a lot to dissect there. I'm mostly focused on the back portion of it, John. Can Oklahoma be patient this week? Will we learn anything positive in that regard?
So here's where I think guys like Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson come into play, because it doesn't matter if they decide to drop 8 into coverage. You've got 2 guys that can go up and get the football, and you can attack down the sideline, especially with a guy like Jaden Gibson, who's proven that he can go down the sideline and make a 50-50 catch every single time it's been thrown to him this year. So that, to me, he's one of those guys that's like a zone buster. You want to drop 8 in coverage and not allow us to throw it down the field. Okay, we may not be able to hit the post route to Anthony or Farouk like we've done this season. I mean, he asked the question in the first part, will Lebby learn and scheme guys open down the field? He had Jalil Farouk schemed open down the field. Dillon Gabriel just missed him bad. But when you have a guy like Jaden Gibson who can go up and get the football, and he's going to win those contested catches more often than not, you can throw that down the sideline, and it's a kind of a low risk play unless they decide to, shade a bunch of safeties over there, but you can throw it up to a point that only Jaden Gibson can get it, and you're going to have a good chance to make a big play down the field. I do think that Dillon Gabriel is showing like he is going to take what the defense gives him. He's not going to force the issue more often than not. And this week is one of those weeks where we see, I think, a big Drake Stoops game and a big, potentially a Gavin Freeman game. We might see a little bit more Jalil Farouk opportunities in this game. I think similar to what we saw in SMU, where it's going to be a lot of RPO and a lot of slants, where you're trying to beat coverage that's forcing you to take the underneath stuff. Be okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And if they want to drop 8 into coverage, then by all means let them, and you just run the football and let your screen game work for you. That's a heavy component to Jeff Lebby's offense, is the screen game. And this is a great opportunity to put that on display with guys like Stoops and Freeman and Petaway, where you can throw it to them like you did against Arkansas State 17, 20 times, and you're going to be able to be effective that way in marching down the football field and scoring points.
By the way, the Jalil Farouk play that Gabriel misses him and they don't make the connection there, a lot of people, and by a lot of people, I mean everybody followed Teddy and Gabe's lead on this. Teddy basically, I guess, said on the radio broadcast, John, I didn't know this the other day, and I'm just going off of, and I think you are too, what you and I saw and probably most people saw live on television was an overthrow, right? A miss by Dillon Gabriel. But Teddy said it, I guess, immediately that Jalil Farouk was basically gassed on the route that, basically it was a little bit of Farouk kind of quitting on the route. So just throwing that out there in that particular instance. I would say to that, though, to anybody that is quick to point that out, that look, over the course of however many games it's been Gabriel as the starter at Oklahoma, inaccuracies is still a problem. And even if it's not in that particular moment with Jaleel Farouk, even if it was kind of a Farouk was gassed in back-to-back snaps, and in that one instance, maybe it's more on Farouk than Gabriel. Unfortunately, because of the other plays with Dylan Gabriel and some of the track record there, people are quick to point it out and highlight it and say, see, look, I told you Gabriel has 3, 4, 5 key misses a game. So I don't know, just interesting. And I thought,
my rebuttal to that would be, it's the quarterback's job to throw it to the receiver. Unless you're just throwing it out to space and hoping your guy's going to be fast enough to go catch your ball. Like, no, your job's to throw it to a part where the receiver can get the ball. You have to understand the speed in which he's running his route and get it to him. That's your job. That is your only job. I mean, that's the biggest part of your job, is to throw it to your receiver. And I mean, if Farouk wasn't running as fast as he might normally run, okay, I can understand that. But then you're still Dylan Gabriel just kind of guessing, and you're like, okay, Farouk, he should be there, but I'm not looking to see if he's there or not. I'm just throwing the ball. So I don't know. That's my rebuttal to it. Still, I think, like you said, Dylan Gabriel doesn't really get much of the benefit of the doubt, because we saw a bunch of overthrows last year and some this year. And listen, I'm a Dylan Gabriel supporter. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he helps this team win football games this year. But yeah, you don't really get much of the benefit of the doubt right now, because you just don't.
And that's going to be the way it is with a lot of Oklahoma. Let's just call it what it is. People have a fear with Dylan Gabriel that he's not good enough to beat Texas. Simply put, he's not accurate enough. He's not this. He's not this or that enough to go win that game. And that's not just Dylan Gabriel specific, by the way, either. There's a lot of parts of Oklahoma that are that way, that, hey, I need to see it to believe it. And you know what? I've kind of always been that way for the most part in sports. Like for years and years and years, it was, oh, well, this is the year. Look out. Scott Frost has got his guys. Nebraska, you'd have one national analyst after another. Oh, Nebraska's winning 9-10 games this year. And I'm like, before the season, guys, why are you picking Nebraska to win 9 or 10 games? Until Nebraska shows you that they can win 9 or 10 games, don't pick them to do that. So, hey, again, if you want to see it to believe it, I get all that. 3 more that I think are pretty good out here from the comments section. Are you ready? From BMG Baby. Are we going to see more from PJ?
Yeah, I got to see more out of Baware. He is among pass rushers who rush the passer regularly. He has got the second highest pass rush win rate of all Oklahoma Sooners, only behind Dasan McCullough. And McCullough's only got the 1 game. So if you want to even look at how many times that they've rushed the passer, I mean, Dasan McCullough has only rushed the passer 4 times. Adepoju Adebawore has rushed the passer 34 times and has a pass rush win rate of 20.6%. So 1 out of every 5 pass rushes, he's winning. He's beating his guy. So yes, I'm ready to see more of Adepoju Adebawore. I think he's a really, really good player, and he's going to continue to ascend. It's super early in his career, and he's already showing that he can be a game changer. He was like a tick away from a strip sack of Emory Jones this past week, which I think would have caused the internet to blow up if Adepoju Adebawore gets that. And the pass rush is getting better each and every week. And the fact that he's getting more and more snaps, and I think helps the pass rush to show that they're getting better every single week.
Couple more here. We could probably, for the next hour and a half, read your comments and just react to them. And they're really good. So appreciate you guys in the live chat. Midnight Wolf writes us and says, anyone else find it odd that no national media are really even talking about OU? Like even Joel Klatt likes to talk about OU on his pod and YouTube channel, and yet he has been unusually silent. John, I'll let you tee off on this in a moment. I would just say to the same comment I made a moment ago, see it to believe it. And I think a lot of people, kind of at the beginning of last season, right? Coming out of that Nebraska game, Joel Klatt would be one of them. Remember, he called that second half of the Nebraska game by himself. He was actually did a great job on play-by-play. As somebody that does play-by-play, hats off, Joel. That was a nice call by you. But he was as impressed as anybody coming out of that game. And I don't think he was alone. I mean, he was alongside even a noted Oklahoma villain. Colin Cowherd was like, I think this team's going to the college football playoff or will be very much in the thick of that race. So I think a lot of people got burnt a season ago. And again, until Oklahoma goes and gets that signature win, unless it's unnecessary roughness, which I'll say that and no more clout for unnecessary roughness. Unless you're taking that approach, probably you're not saying much about OU right now.
Yeah, I don't see a ton. I thought Kirk Herbstreit was really complimentary on the ESPN College Game Day from this past Saturday morning, just mostly about Oklahoma's defense and the improvement that they've shown. And I think that resonates. And I think most people are still in a kind of wait and see because Texas is going to be the big test. But there are noticeable differences to what this team is doing. And I think that's a lot of where the national media is at least the respectable national media is at. That, hey, they look improved. Things are on the right trajectory for the Oklahoma Sooners, but are they ready to contend? That's still part of a question that everybody's still waiting to see. And that's why you didn't see Oklahoma make any movement really in the polls. They were number 14 in the USA Today USLBM coaches poll this week, but I'm okay with that. I'm not necessarily needing everybody to talk up Oklahoma. Oklahoma will go improve it on the field. And right, that's what we want them to do. That's the only thing that matters is what happens on the field, the wins and losses. And they look like a team that's going to win a lot of football games. By the season's end, people will be talking about Oklahoma because I believe they'll be playing for a Big 12 title and potentially playing in the college football playoff.
Well, and it's what we do. We live in the here and now, and we react to what we hear. And because of your incredible support, we have this Locked On Sooners channel where you can get great OU coverage every day. Love you everydayers out there. But ultimately, does it matter that much outside of Oklahoma's going to go prove it or not? Like, I think back to the 2003 season, John, that we were living. And in the moment, live week to week, it wasn't crazy. Living it that, okay, this is the greatest college football team of all time, or is this Oklahoma team the greatest of all time? I lived that. I remember that. I'm old enough to, yes, remember that season vividly for Oklahoma. That was a dominant OU team week to week to week, and they had that expectation going into the season and up until obviously the Big 12 championship game and then the national championship game. They were living up to that. So, hey, and then they didn't get the job done, right? So ultimately, the Oklahoma's the greatest this or that of all time didn't matter for that team, the same way that national media talking heads not talking about OU in that light right now doesn't matter. It's earned. It's not given.
Yeah, I'm still a believer, whether Joel Klatt's talking much about Oklahoma or not. I'm a believer in what Oklahoma's doing right now and the way that they're going. A few more things. I mean, we can get outside the Oklahoma Sooners and talk a little bit of Big 12. Well, no, we gotta fulfill the promise of the rundown, Josh. We got to talk tight end. Go ahead.
I've got just one more before we dive back into Oklahoma specific. Because I thought this was good from Seth. Matt Campbell's imploded. So has Aranda. But Campbell was being mentioned for big jobs. Now no one's probably going to touch him. And Aranda in year 4 has regressed. So, simple question here I say simple. This could be a loaded question here for you. Either one of these two guys, do either one of these two guys wind up with a big time job at any point in the future? Do they stabilize, or have both of these two individuals, Campbell and Aranda, overstayed what were successful early starts?
With Aranda, so our guy that runs the Locked On Big 12 channel, Drake Toll, he also used to run Locked On Baylor. He's a Baylor alum. He seems to believe that Aranda gets at least one more year down there in Waco. I'm not so sure, because the way things are heading, this doesn't look like a team that's going to be bowl eligible by the end of the season. And we just saw a kind of a Texas legend go into Waco in GJ Kinney and beat the Baylor Bears. And this is an up and coming head coach. I would not be surprised to see them fire Aranda and go get Kenny and make him the head coach. He's a Texas dude with Texas ties throughout the state because his dad was a high school coach. He was a really, really good high school quarterback in the state before going off to Tulsa and playing his college ball there. Has ties to Gus Malzahn, part of that coaching tree. So it would not surprise me to see them go back to a guy who's more of an offensive coach. Because, I mean, what is Dave Aranda there to do, right? He's there to create an elite defense that can help Baylor win on a consistent basis. That defense isn't there. And just like Seth mentions, they've regressed. And how much of that, Big 12 championship team was still a Matt Rule creation? Hard to say because they'd won 2 games the previous year. But they look like an average to below average program right now. And I don't think that that's going to linger very long for Waco and Baylor supporters. I don't see that. Matt Campbell, I mean, he had opportunities to go to Big Ten jobs and he might still like Michigan. It wouldn't surprise me to see Michigan State kind of reach down and pluck him out of Iowa State and say, hey, we believe that with our resources and our, the facilities that we've got and our ability to recruit that we could help Matt Campbell, have better than 3-star guys with 5-star mentalities. We can get him 4 and 5-star guys with 4 and 5-star mentalities. So it wouldn't surprise me too much, but I kind of feel like he kind of missed his opportunity after the Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, Big 12 appearance, Big 12 title game appearance that they had a few years back. So it's hard to say, man. And I don't necessarily think Iowa State fires Matt Campbell because who are you going to get? I mean, he's kind of the Mike Gundy of Iowa State, the guy that's had the most success there in who knows how long. And he's beaten Oklahoma a couple of times. He's got some feathers in his cap that'll keep the job. But the question is, will somebody take a chance based on what's happened the last couple of years? I don't know.
Yeah. And final thought on that, then let's get to what probably folks are on the right side of the board. Like, hey, are you ever going to talk about Oklahoma tight ends? Yes, we will. Collectively, this Big 12 conference, man, like coaches that have done really good. Mike Gundy over his career, folks are kind of dunking on Mike Gundy here in the chat a little bit, and deservedly so. It's not going well. McGuire had a ton of momentum after, year 1 last year with Texas Tech. It's going horribly wrong. Deion Sanders, okay, I'm still see where that could be, very successful long-term. But even that, I mean, wow, you're talking about things are going great. Then you got a house by Oregon. I think you're going to get a house again by USC. And I think there's some other losses on the schedule too. So all of these coaches collectively that will comprise the Big 12 going forward, man, it's a little bit of a mess right now.
It is. All right, tight end. It's time to have the conversation. I mean, Austin Stogner just is not it. And I hate to say that because he's such a respected part of this team and a respected part of the program, but whatever happened, I mean, his leg injury, it seems like it's just zapped whatever athleticism he once had. And you hate to say that. He's a good dude that works hard and puts his heart out there for Oklahoma. It's just hard to watch him play on the football field. And there comes a point in time where, okay, his veteran presence isn't enough to help you. He's actually got to be able to perform because there's too many times where he's missing on a block. The one catch that he had, he just looked so slow after he caught and turned the ball around. I just thought, like, dude, just go down. Just take the ball and go down. Don't try. I don't know. What's your take on the tight end situation? I'd rather almost see them run without a tight end right now or make it Blake Smith's job until we can see what Caden Helms has or Jason Llewellyn has. But yeah, it's time to find something else.
Agreed. And I think this is a good thought from Keaton. You use Stog for the red zone and then use some of the younger guys for the rest of it. There's probably something to that. Yeah, he doesn't look like the Stogner I remember from 2020. And I hate to say that. I don't want to be negative about someone that I think is a great kid and has done some awesome things at OU in the past. And oh, by the way, has just kind of been snake bitten by injuries over the course of his career. But right now, physically, who Stogner is, it doesn't look like what I remember Austin Stogner being. In the blocking element that you mentioned, is not good right now for Oklahoma. So they've tried these, this first third of the season to make that work. And John, I think it's time, yes, to honestly, I think Blake Smith's the best option right now based on what he provides blocking. And oh, by the way, he's shown a little bit of wiggle after the catch. Not saying that he's going to go be Braden Willis or any of these other, pretty good tight ends that Oklahoma's had over the last, 10 years. And, dating back further than that, now you start talking about some great tight ends that Oklahoma's had like Gresham, but he's serviceable, right? And right now with Stockner, I hate to say it, but I don't even know that you have serviceable with Stockner right now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. A few more thoughts and questions from y'all over in the chat before we get out of here on tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners Live. Again, thank you so much for being a part of it. It's such a blast to do this with you every single week. It's so much fun to do it during football season because we have games to talk about. Does Texas struggle with Kansas, Josh?
I think KU is going to score some points. Yeah. We'll see. This is going to be a nice little final statement for the Longhorns, positively or negatively, going into Red River. That was pretty impressive. I mean, think what you want to think about Baylor, but for Aranda to be talking all that talk and then to just get waxed like that was impressive by Texas. And, by and large, say for probably the beginning, a season opening contest, and then that, first half versus Wyoming, maybe 3/4 versus Wyoming. Texas has been pretty impressive. So one final chance to take things into the Red River game and do it as, the pretty, not total head and shoulders favorite, but yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody's favorite going into the game. I like Texas to wind up winning by a couple of scores just because even though KU, I do see some improvement a little bit on the defensive side of the football, John, I just think ultimately the environment and having to score every single possession to go win this game, I don't think KU is going to be able to do that. But KU's going to have their success offensively too. Daniels is too good not to.
I kind of like the wins that KU's had. You beat Illinois, you beat BYU, a BYU team that just beat Arkansas. So the spread is just way too big for me. I think KU's going to keep that one so much closer. And I think it's going to come down to similarly to what it did a couple years back where it went to overtime and Kansas was able to get the win on the road in Austin. I don't know if they'll get the win this time, but I have a hard time betting against them. Devin Neal has been fantastic this year. Jalen Daniels obviously has been great. I think their defense is becoming more and more opportunistic all the time. And I mean, I feel we did the exercise last week on the live show. Which games do you feel better about, worse about? I mean, I feel worse about that Kansas game right now because of the way that they're playing football. They're just a really, really good football team right now, and they're getting better and better. And I've got them third in my power rankings this week over at Sooners Wire. And that's because I feel like they're one of the best teams in the conference right now. We'll see if that holds up. They'll have a chance to prove it against Texas, just like Oklahoma will. But it's fascinating to see their improvement continually under Lance Leipold.
Yeah, and he's, I think, going to be a legitimate, big-time serious candidate for Michigan State, and we'll see what else opens up regardless this offseason. Leipold's going to be up for those jobs. He kind of feels to me, John, like a Big Ten head football coach, just in the sense that he won those national championships with Wisconsin, Whitewater, and everything. So he's sort of familiar with that. I think I've got that right for him. I think he's, familiar with that part of the country, and obviously he's, having success again at Kansas. So he could stay there. But again, if you stay, you run the risk of, I think, winding up like Aranda, and probably the better example is Matt Campbell. Now, they go beat Texas, and no doubt he's going to be on everybody's short list. And oh, by the way, for the Jayhawks, after, a decade plus of being the nation's biggest laughingstock, all of a sudden they're back in the Associated Press poll. You win this game down there in Austin, and you're a top 15 team in America by everybody. And so that'd be fun to see, not just because, hey, horns down, but just for college football, it'd be a fun story.
All right, final question for the night from Midnight Wolf. That's a great username. Which team do y'all think will become an OU insert team rivalry in the SEC? I think it could be Alabama. I have family that thinks it could be Arkansas. Josh, you got thoughts?
Alabama will automatically, and does automatically, have the respect of the Oklahoma fan base. So without Arkansas, being locked in as an annual opponent. I think that takes a little bit of the luster away from that. So, yeah, out of those two, I'd probably lean Alabama just because the fan base simply respects Alabama a little bit more than they respect Arkansas. And if you're not going to play Arkansas every single season, again, you and I've sat here and said for a long time that Arkansas to me is basically Bedlam on steroids, potentially. To me, I mean, it's basically replacing Oklahoma State with a better Oklahoma State historically. But it doesn't sound like that's how it's going to play out with the SEC scheduling.
Yeah, I think Alabama could be a great rival. They'll travel well. OU fans will travel well to Tuscaloosa, two great college towns with great stadiums. If they do, we need to have some kind of crimson-themed trophy to exchange back and forth between the two with, the Crimson Tide and the Crimson and Cream or something. We got to figure out something there on that front because it just
Crimson Bowl.
Easy. Yeah, the Crimson Bowl, just something. A bowl of crimson. I don't know. And yeah, I think Arkansas could be a great, yearly rivalry if that's how it plays out. But if it's not played every single year, I don't know how much buzz it'll create. But it's going to be a fun matchup no matter what. I mean, Fayetteville's closer to me right now than Norman is. So I'm excited for that contest to take place.
I would say this. Olympic sports, I think Arkansas will be a bigger rival. Football, I think Alabama will be a bigger rival. I can totally see the scenario where, Arkansas is pretty decent right now in softball and, occasionally maybe they think they can beat you a couple of times and probably they're not going to the way Gasso's going right now and whatever happens next at Oklahoma softball. But Oklahoma on the baseball diamond will have to elevate itself. Obviously they went to the Women's College World Series or the Men's College World Series championship series just a couple of years ago, and we're close to winning a national championship, but really the program hasn't been at that consistent Arkansas level. So if OU baseball elevates itself a little bit, then I could see that being a big time rivalry. And basketball, I think it has the makings of that as well. Again, Oklahoma's going to have to get good again at men's basketball, but with what they've been doing at the BOK with that series, Arkansas maybe across the board, as I'm talking myself into it, a little bit more of a rivalry, but not in the one that people care the most about, football.
Yeah. Like women's gym, it'll probably be LSU. That'll be a fantastic duel when that comes to pass. That'll be just so much fun because LSU women's gymnastics is so good and really creates a lot of buzz down there in Baton Rouge as well, just like Oklahoma's does in Norman, Oklahoma City area too. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Not Locked On Susan. I don't know where that came from. I think I'm just getting tired. I had 2 soccer practices for the kids tonight.
Susan Sarandon fan.
Oh yeah. Big Susan Sarandon. Love some Bull Durham. It's good times. But hey, Ethan Major, thanks for the shout out. Locked On Sooners is fire. Seth Ammerman, thank you so much for letting us know you enjoyed the show. It says great show. Thanks so much to everybody that took time to be a part of the chat tonight. Always love you all being with us. Midnight Wolf says thank you for your insights. J&J Music Factory right here. But that's going to do it for tonight's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks again so much for being a part of the show and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, we're free and available on every podcast platform and on YouTube. Hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners and on Facebook, Locked On Sooners Podcast. But until next time, he's Josh. I'm John Boomer Sooner.